All right, I got it figured out. So what happened, this is actually something you guys might find happens to you, is sometimes you might accidentally select a spot. Okay, so I'm on the lasso tool right now. I don't know how I did it, but I'm gonna select a little section, and I'm gonna put it like over really far so I can't see it too well. So we'll go over like that. Okay, and it's way over there, and I have no idea where it's at. So now when I go into the brush menu and I try to paint, nothing's working. So somehow, while we were doing all that, I selected a spot, and that was why I couldn't paint. Well, if that happens periodically, you're like, why am I not getting any paint? Just hit Control D to deselect, just to double check, and then, hey, it might work. All right, so back to what we were doing, shape dynamics. Go up to shape dynamics, size jitter is gonna change the size as you're painting, and this is really nice for like foliage, you know? So you can get like a leaf brush. Let's see if we can find like a leaf looking shape here. Get a leaf brush. Oh, that's kind of dope actually. What is that? That is not a leaf shape. There we go. Turn it like that. Okay. So size jitter. So as we're going, this will change the size of your foliage. So you can get something that looks a little more natural because there's variation in size. We don't want anything to look man-made or person-made. Next thing too is minimum diameter. This is just how small it is when you start. Minimum diameter is like nothing. So you can go all the way down to 1. Angle jitter, this will just change the angle, and this is really good for foliage too. You always want to have a brush that actually is, you know, like a leaf. So if I go over to like one of these, find a little leaf brush. That's a good leaf brush. Good angle jitter on it. I'll go over to the settings. Okay, we'll turn size jitter on. We'll go angle jitter is all crazy. You can see the angles changing. Okay, I'll go to the brush tip shape. We'll turn this down quite a bit, and then now you can have like a tree with a bunch of leaves sticking off of it really quickly. I can make this night like a leaf night. Just got camo on or something. It's actually pretty cool. It's a good idea. Why would a night need camo? Okay, never mind. You can really quickly use the lasso tool to delete stuff too. So you don't have to like actually use the eraser tool to do that. And that actually brings us up to the eraser tool, which is the next big tool that we use quite often. So the eraser tool is the exact same thing as the brush tool. It's just the opposite. It takes stuff away. But you still can open a menu. You can still grab a brush, and you can still edit the brush to do some things. So it uses all the same settings, uses the same brushes and stuff like that. It just does the opposite. So you can go in between, you can go back and forth between the brush tool, and you can have something set up, and then you can go in and hit E for erase, and you can build some stuff up, cut it in, make it look really cool. I like to design this way too. If you go over, I'll go to my brushes, go to my standards, I can grab like a nice triangle inking brush. Get the same brush for both the eraser and for the design, and so I can start designing things and building up shapes, and then I can start cutting into it a little bit, change the size. Oh, another way to the thing to focus on too is how do we change the size of our brush? You can use the brackets. So left bracket makes your brush smaller, right bracket makes your brush bigger. Okay. Now within the eraser and the brush tool, we go to the contextual, or I'm sorry, it's the old name for it, the menu bar, or the options bar, and you can see we have a bunch of stuff that matters to what we're doing real quick. So we can always go up here and you can click over, and this is where all your brushes are as well. You can click that. You can click here, and there's some predetermined tools that you can get to. We'll talk about that in the future when I make a tool thing for you. You guys can click on that, and it brings up the tool settings, or brush settings. Layer mode, or the mode right here, this is just how your brush works, and we're going to talk about that when we go to layers in just a moment. Opacity, so this is important. Opacity is just how much it lays down. So right now this is at 100% opacity, and it's pure black. But if I bring this down to like 50%, it's going to be kind of a mid-tone gray. And if I paint over this again, it's going to stack 250s and it's going to be black. Okay, so you can do that. What's really cool too is, if you want to kind of draw by building up values, this is one way we can do it. This is kind of like a watercolory way to do stuff. And you draw your shape, and then you start defining some values that you want to exist in a spot. I really like to draw and paint this way when I'm designing because it helps to help me focus on, say like I want like a mid-tone gray. Go back to black, bring this down to like 20%. Now it helps me just focus on like drawing form and value. Really slowly build up where I want things to be. Work on different sizes for stuff. But yeah, that's how that works. Okay, so that's opacity. You can also go to flow. So flow is how much of the texture is going to be showing. Some brushes have a texture. So if we go over to, for instance, one of my favorite brushes, this is like the pastel brush. You can see there's a lot of texture on this brush. It's going to come out and it's going to be a nice interesting shape with a lot of interesting stuff going on with it. But if you go to flow, it's going to show less of that texture as you put it down. Okay, a more clear example would be something like this. Let's go to the chalky edge brush. Right now my flow is at 17%. And you can see it's showing little bits of the texture as I draw. If I turn this back up to 100%, it's going to show quite a bit of that texture as I draw. Okay, and the harder I push, the more that texture is going to show through. So I turn the flow down, and it's going to show just a little bit of texture, and so forth. So playing with all of this, playing with the relationship of the opacity and the flow of the brush that you're using will bring you a brush that does really kind of what you're looking for. Oh, see, I ran out of Z's. I ran out of control undos. So sometimes you're going to do that. You're going to run out of stuff to get you back to where you want to be. All right, that was the eraser tool. That's the settings up on the top. Oh, and also too, let's say you want to draw something that is a little bit more symmetrical. Let's say I want to try to like figure out a helmet for one of these guys or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and I could draw the helmet like this, and I can, yeah, it's all uneven. Nice. Yeah, dude, this is what I get paid for. This is why I'm a teacher. This kind of work. Okay. Yeah, that's messy. It's difficult to draw something that's supposed to be symmetrical and nice when you're freehanding it. You can always just go up here to the top. There's a little butterfly, and if you click on this, it's going to show you different options for symmetry. So you can create a vertical line, and it's going to bring up a little blue line, and then you can move. If you grab it, you can move this around, bring it to where you want to work, and then I'm going to hit enter. And then now when I draw, I'm going to create a symmetrical line. So I can start really focusing on one side and just trying to find interesting shapes. And then I can actually design something that's decent and worth looking at. I gotta focus on teaching and not drawing right now. I have so much fun drawing. Okay, moving on. Right, and so now we still have that there, and I want to get rid of that. So you can go to this, back up here to the symmetry button, hit symmetry off, and it'll remove it. And you'll go right back to what you were doing. Okay. That was the brush. Eraser. Now smudge tool. Now let's say you want to blend, okay? We have two different colors. We have I'm going to go to the inking pen. I'm going to grab green. And I'm going to grab a kind of lighter blue. Oh, I got to make sure that these are correct opacity first. Always make sure your opacity is set to full, because sometimes you guys will get things that don't make sense to you. So I got this really intense blue, really intense green, and I want to blend them together. So one thing you could do is you could always use a round brush that's got a soft edge and try to blend them. Okay, but it gets a little difficult to control that, and especially if you're trying to get something a little bit more larger. You know, you could just, it'll take a while. One easy, quick way to blend things is to go over here to the smudge tool. And smudge tool just does what it sounds like it does. It's gonna push your paint around. It's gonna push your pixels so they do certain things. So default, you guys will probably see it as the blur tool, but the smudge tool is in here. So I'm gonna hit the smudge tool, and this is gonna act just like a brush. And this is a warning, please pay attention to this part. This is gonna be using a lot of brain power on the computer to do this. But if you draw across this, it's gonna start mixing those pixels together, okay? The larger your brush, the further it's gonna do that. Now, as you guys can see, if I did this, it's gonna take a little bit of time. That's because it's trying to take all of the pixels that are on the screen and it's trying to blend them and blur them together. And I have a really nice computer. I have a very powerful PC, and it still takes a lot of time. Now imagine our very old and not as powerful PCs at school trying really hard to think with all of this calculating, and it's just insane. And sometimes people will use this brush and then they'll smudge, and they'll be like, Mr. Creason, it's not working, it's not doing anything. No, it is, it's doing this. It's just taking a really, really long time to do it. So you need to be very careful with how much you use it and how big you work with. I generally like to work kind of small and in little sections and little movements, okay? Little movements that just give me a little bit of a mix, okay? Now, instead of having all of the layers fixed, I just wanna blend these two guys together. I don't wanna blend it with the background, because right now it's blending it with the background and these guys. If you go up here to where the menu bar is, and you go to sample all layers and you turn it off, it's only going to work on the layer that you're on now, and so it'll only smudge those, and that'll save some computing time. So now if I do this, it'll think faster and it'll only smudge the two colors. It won't smudge the background with it. All right, so that's it for this tool video. We're going to move on to layers next, and we're going to talk about color as well and adjustments. So thank you.